Welcome to our YouTube channel, where we celebrate the rich history and culture of African people around the world. Today, we delve into a topic that may leave a bitter taste in your mouth, as we uncover the struggles our ancestors went through, all in the name of slavery. Kindly hit the subscribe button and let's begin. The transatlantic slave trade was a dark period in history that involved the forcible abduction and transportation of millions of Africans from their homelands to the Americas. This brutal trade was driven by European powers, primarily during the 16th to 19th centuries. The process of forcibly taking slaves from Africa began with the arrival of European ships along the coast. Slave traders, often working for European colonial powers, established fortified trading posts along the African coastline. These posts served as bases from which they launched expeditions to capture slaves. Slave traders employed various tactics to obtain slaves. One method was to form alliances with African tribes or kingdoms, taking advantage of existing conflicts or rivalries. They would provide weapons, ammunition, or other valuable goods to these local African partners in exchange for captives. Some African leaders were complicit in the slave trade, seeing it as an opportunity to gain power or resources at the expense of rival groups. Once alliances were established, raiding parties were organized to venture into the African interior. These parties, made up of African collaborators and European traders, would capture people through acts of violence or deception. Villages were raided, and people were captured at gunpoint, and forcibly separated from their families and communities. The captured Africans, often referred to as cargo or goods, were subjected to horrifying conditions. They were tightly packed into cramped holding cells on the coast, known as barracoons or slave pens, before being transported across the Atlantic. These holding cells lacked proper sanitation, ventilation, and adequate food and water. The captives endured unimaginable suffering during their time in these dungeons, often enduring physical abuse and inhumane treatment. Once the ships were fully loaded with their human cargo, the Middle Passage began, a treacherous and deadly journey across the Atlantic Ocean. The slaves were tightly packed into the lower decks of the ships, chained together, and subjected to unsanitary and overcrowded conditions. Many slaves fell ill due to diseases such as dysentery, smallpox, and malnutrition. Countless others perished during the voyage, succumbing to disease, suicide, or the harsh treatment inflicted upon them. Upon arrival in the Americas, the surviving slaves were sold at slave markets or auctions. They were viewed as property, stripped of their identities and humanity, and forced into a life of bondage and servitude. Families were separated, and individuals were assigned to work on plantations, in mines, or in households as domestic servants. The transatlantic slave trade had devastating consequences for African societies, as millions of people were forcibly taken from their homes, resulting in a profound loss of cultural heritage, disrupted social structures, and economic devastation. It is crucial to remember and acknowledge the immense suffering endured by those who were enslaved and to reflect upon the enduring legacy of slavery as we work towards a more just and equitable future. The impact of this heinous practice is still felt today. We must never forget the countless individuals who suffered and died in this pursuit of wealth and power. It is up to us to recognize this legacy and work towards building a future where exploitation and oppression are never tolerated. Thank you for watching.